Hey Menifee, Gabriela Venturo here. Today I am at City Hall getting ready to interview our newest city manager, Armando Villa. Now I'm going to ask him a couple questions about how he plans to tackle things in his first month here serving your city here in Menifee. Enjoy! So Armando, I understand that you're from a surrounding area, you're familiar with Menifee. How did your path lead you to Menifee?
Well, I started my public service career roughly about 27 years ago.
Okay.
So right out of college, I took my first job. My first job was with the city of Lake Elsinore. So back in 1991, I took a job as an assistant planner
Okay.
for the city of Lake Elsinore. And when I took the job, I thought, I'm gonna only be here for about a year, 2 years. I really wanted to be, in a well urbanized city, right?
Right.
So what my I guess faith led me to Lake Elsinore, and as that city evolved, after having worked there for about 14 years, those 14 years really gave me a lot of experience in urban planning and urban development. And as you know, Lake Elsinore is just next door to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always known about Menifee, as when Menifee became a very young city back in 2008. Um, we would see from Lake Elsinore what was going on in Menifee. It was always attractive. So fast forward 27 years. One last summer I was driving through here and exited 210 on Newport Road, and I saw all the good things that were happening in Menifee, and I immediately, I can't say I fell in love, but I really liked it. I really liked what was going on, and I always remember the things that were going on in Lake Elsinore and the things that were going on in Menifee, a fast evolving city, and soon after that I learned that the city was looking for a city manager, and that sort of kind of led me to wanting to be here. It became my mission to convince the council that I was the right person for this job, because I really saw a lot of potential in this city.
Great. Yeah, that's an awesome story.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you plan to tackle first? I know there's a lot on the list and on the agenda, but what's at that top priority for you?
Well, I think it's still too early to start developing a list of things that I need to do. I've been here for roughly about 2 months, and I think my first goal is to be able to understand the lay of the land, understand the culture of the city, and also be able to connect with employees, the public, and try to understand what their vision of the community is. I already know what the vision for me is for the city, but I can't design that without having input from the public. So
Right.
I think my first goal is to be able to understand what's going on inside, right? Before I can start putting plans in place to be able to develop outward. So I know that as a growing city, some of our challenges are going to be infrastructure, and as always, public safety is going to be an issue.
Of course.
And so I would say over the next 6 months to a year, we need to put together a better plan. Not that there's one there, but a
Yeah.
better plan to be able to tackle the growing pains, the challenges that we will have as a growing city, to provide better public services, i.e., public safety and infrastructure.
Of
So that's
course.
my primary goal.
Feel Menifee's most important needs are? We get, from our Facebook discussions and maybe just even talking to neighbors or friends, lots of concerns. And, people are concerned with stuff that maybe they have no idea how it works. For example, the bigger chained restaurants, they, want more of the local, like Temecula. And they have those complaints. But what do you feel is actually crucial to the city, to making it evolve into a bigger city and to where we want to be in the future?
I think it's important first to start working on infrastructure. Without infrastructure, without having new streets, without having a roadway, a network, where people can travel safely, is going to be very difficult for us to attract new businesses.
Of course.
So before we embark on a plan to go bring new businesses, the exciting businesses that are in surrounding cities,
Right.
we need to start working internally. We need to start working on our infrastructure, our circulation first, right? Everybody complains about traffic. Everybody complains about road conditions. And by the way, we do have a pretty good plan right now to be able to tackle all those projects, right? We have a very good plan, and as you can see, we work really hard to be able to work on Newport Interchange, and for the most part, everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Our next project is going to be Scott Road Interchange, and it's going to be almost the same as Newport Road.
Interesting.
And once we have those two projects in place, we're going to then start to have a very aggressive campaign to bring in new businesses, to bring in those restaurants that people want to see here, the corner bakery cafes, the specialty markets, and those attractive, very high producing establishments, right? The Home Depots, the Walmarts, so as we work and evolve as a city in building more infrastructure, it's going to be easier for us to attract those businesses.
Absolutely. So we're going to go into the measures, specifically Measure DD. Can you tell us a little bit more about the measure and where the future holds and maybe what it's done thus far?
Well, I think Measure DD is oftentimes misunderstood by the residents. I think for the most part, everybody thinks it's just another tax, right?
Okay.
But I think either we need to do a better job explaining to people the importance of DD to the city, or people need to be more accepting about the fact that cities such as ourselves, we depend heavily on those types of measures to be able to provide the needed services. And for the most part, Measure DD was approved by the voters last year, right? And one of the things that I found interesting was that measure was approved by a sort of a high margin of acceptance by the people. I believe it was 60%, 67% of the people voted yes for it. So what does that tell you? I think people really at that time understood the benefits of that 1 cent tax.
Right.
And it's not very much, right? But there are a lot of people out there that really don't care for more taxes, right? So they want to see it gone.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now that, having had that amount of revenue for 1 year has given us more life, and has given us the ability to plan ahead. Because of that measure, we were able to put together a 5-year capital project that forecasts revenues for the next 5 years and how we're going to expense that revenue to build infrastructure, to provide better public safety.
Yeah.
And to go out there and do the things that we couldn't do before because we were limited on revenue. Just last year alone, we were able to fund approximately 20 more hours of public safety through our fire department, through our sheriff department contract. We were able to buy motorcycles and fund additional staffing for the sheriff department, as well as be able to supplement and augment some staffing levels at the fire department.
Interesting.
And those funds allowed us to buy a paramedic truck that's going to go to one of the busiest fire stations in Riverside County. So and at the same time also we carved out a little chunk of money to be able to fund some very needed roads. One of the roads we're funding without money is Scott Road. I think every time I drive through there, I see the lines.
Yeah.
And sometimes I heard the other day, 45 minutes used to be able to get on Scott Road. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Well, having those dollars are going to allow us to fix that. And if all goes well, in about 18 to 24 months, we should see a brand new Scott Road, thanks to the benefits of DD.
Yeah, so maybe people just aren't really understanding, like you said, to the extent of what this measure is going to do, because I mean, really at the end of the day, a cent isn't a lot coming out of their actual pocket, but all of these things are being done. So,
Right. Well, collectively though, after a year, all that 1 cent adds up.
yeah, of
And
course.
you know, we anticipate that it would fund approximately $8 million to $9 million a year to be able to allow us to, you know, put more public safety personnel
Yes.
on the ground and to be able to program more public improvements. You know, the condition of our roads is okay now, but over the next 5 years, it'll start to deteriorate.
Yep.
And those revenues will allow us to plan ahead and build and fix some of those roads before they get in worse conditions. So I think we like and we hope that the residents don't have second thoughts about that, because it's a very important source of revenue for us to be able to compete
Yes.
with other cities. As you know, some of the surrounding cities have a similar measure, and they're utilizing those resources to be able to provide better service to the community. We want to do the same thing too.
Great. Okay, so now you're going to have in your position a ton of critics. How do you plan to tackle them and address them to make them feel like they do have a voice and you are listening and you're for them?
Well, as you know, when you're a city manager, you all the time get feedback from the community as to what they want to see. And, you know, sometimes I get calls from residents that are angry about traffic signals,
Right.
potholes. They criticize us for spending monies where we shouldn't be spending monies. And I think the best recipe to be able to neutralize that is to have an informed conversation with them. I always invite people to talk to me and let them know that there's always two sides to the story, right?
Of course.
They need to understand what the work plan is, and there's no way that we can implement everything at once.
Yeah.
You know, we're limited by workforce, we're limited by revenues, and I think for the most part I've been lucky or successful in communicating that to people when they complain about the condition of our road. And I tell them, if we can fix it tomorrow, we will.
Yeah.
But you need to understand that just like anything else, you have priorities, right? And you go after the priorities that will cost you a liability, and then you go after the priorities that are going to help you in terms of investment.
Right.
And I think for the most part, when you talk to them and you communicate to them and you explain to them the reasons why certain things are not being done, because you're doing other things,
Yeah.
they have a greater level of understanding about the city.
Interesting. Okay. So maybe those people that do have those concerns, where can they come to, or where can they turn to express their concerns?
Well, I mean, we have, nowadays, we continue to have our traditional way of communicating with the city. You can write us a letter, or you can come to City Hall and come to our public counter and file either a complaint form or a consent form. And, or we're very active with social media. We have a Facebook page, and we also have an app that you can download on your phone, and it's very interactive. You can file complaints, you can see what's going on in the city. So we are trying very hard to make sure that people find a connection with us. We were very interested in finding out what they want us to do, in terms of not only fixing roads or dealing with public safety, but also we're very interested in finding out what type of programs they want to see in terms of community services and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Great. Well, I just want to thank you for your time. I really appreciate, you giving us a couple hours of your time. I know it's not easy to do with all the tasks that you plan to tackle. I think this is going to give a good insight to our listeners, our viewers, for who you are and who the city is ran by now.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
All right, Menifee Buzz, there you have it. That was your inside sneak peek of Mr. Armando Villa. Now, as you can tell, you got a little bit better of an idea of who he is and who's in this position now. And we really like him. We can tell that he's going to hit the ground running, and he's accepting all of your concerns. He's a real person. He's understanding of those, and he really just wants what's best for Menifee. Now, as always, keep an eye out for our latest articles, videos, as well as social media. We are not just print, we're online as well. Keep buzzing, Menifee.